My name is Lawrence Kevin Morrison. I go by the name Kevin Morrison most often, and that's another story for another day. But my titles are as follows. From a business standpoint, I'm founder and managing director of Morrison Group LLC. We're a diversified company with primary business in workforce development training that then developed into other things such as Speakers Bureau and now morphed into an organization that does import export here on the continent of Africa between the United States and several African countries. As I stated, morphed into it because it's been a long journey to that point. And included in that journey has been stints as the consultant for aquaponics farming, currently doing consulting for mushroom farming here in Nairobi, catering business, uh, a lot of other business consulting activities, which we'll get into detail during the interview.
Diversified Game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, I have some real game for you. You guys know, love going to Africa. We brought over 200 people using clients' audience like the African diaspora and others over to Africa. And when I saw on Web Nation, Sir Lawrence Kevin, I said, who is this making moves? I have not heard. Then I did some digging and I saw the great O'Shea Duke Jackson and Kia from Traverse, all people I know and consider friendly in this interesting game of entertainment, and I've worked with. But Lawrence, Kevin Morrison, is doing some things where he is going to show you that these government programs can work if you work them, but you got to have the heart of a student and you cannot give up. So we're going to get right into it. Sir Lawrence, Kevin Morrison, welcome to Diversify Game. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me, and yes, excited to be a part of your content and now and into the future.
Yeah. For a second, I thought I might have known you from. I got married in Springfield, Mass, two decades ago almost, and I said, "Was this the brother when I went over to Waterbury to Uptown Consignment Club and trying to get my wife a mink coat that she didn't want? Was this the only other brother in the store?" And I said, "Nah, that wasn't him because that brother owed me $5." But what I did see from you that I really want to get into first because I've heard you say it and how the Philadelphia connection with the African not the cohorts but the organizations that govern
The African Caribbean Business Council, ACB.
And what I want to get into, because you talked about it, but I want you to tell people, because you're one of the few people that actually I've seen work that program. And did you have to go through like the MBDA? Did you have all the certifications? Were you 8A? This is the difference, Lawrence, between me and the other people, because I actually do this government contracting and we can go from RFIs to RFQs, because we know if you get the RFP, you're already too late. They wrote it for me. But but did you have to go through all of that? I'll go deep into the process that I have not heard you speak about yet.
Well, and this is perfect question, and the answer is you don't have to go through the certified minority business programs or the certifications in order to take advantage of an opportunity to get into the import export or even diversifying your business outside of your particular city or state. You don't need to be AA certified. You don't need to go through the NDBA. Now you can go through, any organizations have, but you don't have to. You can just step into these arenas and step into these programs just as a regular business established in your city and state. And both the
Ready to dominate your industry with strategy that actually scales? At Coleman Public Relations and Consulting Firm, we're not just PR experts, we're licensed sports agents certified in AI and elite business consultants with over 2 decades of experience leading global projects across multiple countries. Visit cprfirm.com, that's colemanprfirm.com, and millionairex.ai. Then download the Millionaire X app, your AI-powered guide to getting out of debt, investing smarter, and building generational wealth. Coleman Public Relations and Consulting Firm. It's a family business. It's different.
As a business, you don't need to be my MBE certified, AA certified, or any type of SME or the other minority or small business certifications to take advantage of government support of your business endeavors locally and internationally. So that's the answer to the question right out the gate. We took advantage of the support, and basically it was money to support us traveling outside of the United States to do business internationally through state and federal agencies.
And when you talk about the money, because people hear and they show up, everybody shows up to the program, and I'm sure when you went through, there was no more than a handful of you, or it was just you who actually were able to follow through and stick with it. Can you talk about the monies that are given? Because people say, oh, they'll help us, but they think that they're going to be given something sometimes. You're going to have some capital. So please share some game on what you think, how much capital people will need, and then how much of assistance and where it is. Is it in shipping? Because I'm sure you can't just go buy a Ferrari with that money.
Well, and Kellen, you bring up a very good point. Like you said before, you understand that side of the business equation when it comes to dealing with um, local government, state government, and federal government. Oftentimes, especially for small and medium-sized business, these contracts work on a cost reimbursement basis. It's not that they're cutting you a check and then they're saying, okay, go out and do, like you said, whatever you need to do with it. It's more so you put up the capital and then we'll reimburse you once you, as a business, proven that you've used this money for the exact purpose. For instance, with the what's called a STEP grant, STEP, that grant works in that particular fashion. They will fund a trip for you to travel abroad, but it's on a cost reimbursement basis, and it's usually after you've completed the trip. So if I'm traveling to Kenya, Italy, China, wherever the case may be, I'm going to need to outlay that capital for airfare, hotel, food, XYZ. Keep all the receipts for that activity and that trip. And then when I come back, the government will cut me a check for whatever I spent up to the allotment for the grant. Now, the grant may only be $5,000, but you may have spent $5,400. You get a $5,000 check. You don't get the $5,400 back.
Okay, and that's good to know, because people say 5,000. I needed a quarter ticket and to make this happen, because they had big grandiose deals. Would you say so? I don't want every family member of yours to be in your pocket, but the types of money you needed, was it around that 5,000, or did you see some people get $250,000 to be able to, get their venture off? Maybe even in tech, they might give a little more. Does it matter?
Well, as you know, there's various programs available to support your business, or to be an established business or startup business. That 5,000 was only related to exploring international markets as a producer for international markets, or for those international markets being able to be a supplier to you. That's what I'm referencing to, the $5,000. Now, there are other various types of monies out there available for startup capital, for advertising, for the various things you need in order to operate your business. And those things fall under separate programs, and oftentimes what are called grants, separate grants. So could you accumulate a portfolio where you're bringing in, $500,000, $200,000, $100,000 for your business? Yes, but you got to do the work. As you stated before, Kellen, you got to be able to find those grants. You got to be able to apply to those grants, and you got to be able to adhere to the rules of those grants, which may be anything from 5 years of financial records, proof of this, proof of that. All those things are part of the sourcing capital process. And sourcing capital ranges from private organizations all the way up to public. Like we've gotten private money as well and private grants for our business endeavors over the years.
Okay. A lot of times people get intimidated, especially if they're new to government contracting or anything that the government does, state or federal. But you sit in these meetings and they'll say the XM Bank, the Export Import Bank of the US, and we could make this happen and help you get tractors over there. And you're like, why do you need us? And sometimes they need help with systems. Did you go through any of those programs or find any of them helpful?
We're familiar with those programs. We haven't had the need to utilize an XM or import export bank up to this point. And, to be candid, those organizations usually target the larger businesses in our experience, but they do have vehicles available to support small and medium businesses. What made us step into the import export arena is because of that gap between small and medium-sized businesses, the support they get for international business or import export, and the support that larger businesses get. Just to give you an example, a Boeing, of course, they can tap export import bank to sell their planes all over the world. But can a small plane manufacturer out of Springfield, Massachusetts get the same support? The answer is they're less likely to get it because they're not a big player. So we stepped into the arena to cover that niche. Ultimately, I'm not saying that you can't get some support. It's just that the support leans towards these bigger businesses.
Well, I'm going to put you in that arena if we got to speak it to an existence, because you have so much from the whiskey to the retail to the consulting, which opens up so many doors. People, everybody's a consultant nowadays, and you say, well, show me your work, or who are you working with? And that's when sometimes people start stuttering. But, you have so much going on. What would you say, because you're having these governments say, help, we can help, but that, especially in West Africa, 419 is not a crime. It's just a game. ID winner. That's an Sophia, aka Nkemawa line, if you guys ever seen that movie. But, what would you say on the trusting? I know you do super vetting, but the government are sometimes the most crooked people ever, not just in Africa, in the US. Look at our president right now.
Of course.
Yep. So the vetting, and some embassies even have a vetting list, but those are the people sometimes who've paid them to be on that list. Have you gone to people's houses before getting into business with them, met their mother, met their grandmother, and told them, hey, we're doing this deal?
Yes, it is a matter of fact. You bring up a very good point, because they're like the saying goes, there's levels to this game. So as a individual, or really an organization involved in the international business and the import export game, a lot of times the people you are doing business with are in a position to qualify for the government support on both sides of the equation. And you mentioned whiskey, like the current company that we're involved with as far as getting their whiskey into Kenya. They've been able to participate in 2 trade missions as a result of the advice or the information we shared with them. The first trade mission allowed them to travel to Kenya to explore the market, as we're in the middle of a second trade mission, meeting directly with alcohol producers in the United States, and in particular in Kentucky, which is where this alcohol is produced, Kentucky bourbon. And, just to point out, Kellen, there's a lot of Black Americans involved in the brewery and distillery business, but most of them don't even consider the international market because they don't know there's the support out there that a company like Bro Brothers has utilized.
Well, they don't know. And a lot of us, my first client that I ever had many moons ago, Ken Ivy, aka Pimpin' Ken, he said, we suffer from post-traumatic skepticism disorder. Now, that's not on the DSM, but, they want to try to do it themselves. And I've had people come up to me that I know who do serious business. And they say, Kellen, get us in the African market with liquor. And I'm going to show them this interview, because I'm going to say, look, you didn't want to give me the money, but here's the OG, break him off so you don't waste money and go through the whole ringer, because you only get so much time to do stuff in life. With that said, though, I want them to hear this clearly. What's a range that on the consulting side, especially for liquor or beer, that you are going to expect from them on that monthly retainer? Are you going to want a piece of the business? Shark Tank them. Because I don't want anybody coming to you based off this interview thinking that, oh, well, I got $5,000 for you one time and you're going to do all this work for me that might be 50,000 or more. So give us the game on how that somebody working with you and where they need to be. And we won't hold you to those numbers because everything's going up, and so is your retainer fee.
Yes. Well, and we definitely have scenarios where we've worked on a retainer fee, and the retainer fee is relative, like you said, to the work. What we do is we go through a comprehensive understanding of what the client's ultimate goal is. And as you know, in international business, it spans the spectrum. Just to give you an example, in the alcohol business, some of the alcohol manufacturers here in Kenya and Nairobi from the United States started off with a distribution partner, and then they morphed into having their own office and location here as a result of the growth. And Jack Daniels is one of the perfect examples of that. They started off with a distributor, then they came in on their own, and they still work with the distributor. And that's been the case across many different multinationals in the alcohol business. So our retainer can, range as small as $1,000 a month on up based on the scope of services. Because, ultimately, Kellen, and you can speak to this, having international experience, in most markets, boots on the ground matter. A representative, like, Zoom calls and emails and WhatsApp messages, yeah, that's good. But eventually they're going to want to see somebody that represents your organization, that can speak and look somebody straight in the eye and say, hey, we want to come to this market, or we want to do business with you in various levels. So that'll give you a range starting at 1,000 on a retainer basis. And then a percentage of sales or a piece of the business, it depends on the scenarios and what works best for Morrison Group and the client. As you know, cash flow is king. So we try to be cash flow friendly to organizations that we do business with.
What's the most difficult, especially with liquor, beer, can you get Fani from Uncle Nearest into Kenya so she doesn't have to get, play with these people in America, and she can get her product out there? When you mentioned Jack Daniels, and that's a great book, you guys, that Fani Weaver wrote, check that out. But can you help, kind of save a business, or even Habasha beer that's in Ethiopia that sometimes has a hard time coming to the States and not being charged $8 or $10 for a bottle? Can you help those companies get into the Kenyan market guaranteed with your connections? What's the hardest part of getting people in the Kenyan market?
Well, the hardest part is the payment terms and conditions. And I'll give you a clear example. The reason why other countries make significant penetrations, and I'll mention the Chinese in particular, oftentimes they will make shipments of even full containers of products on a pay me later basis. And when I say pay me later, on credit terms, they'll ship it to a retailer here and say, okay, here's a container full of hair dryers. You sell those hair dryers and then you pay us after you sell them. Obviously, there's an inherent risk with that. So I would say having the proper payment guarantees in place is the biggest hurdle for international business from people in the United States doing business here in Kenya, as well as many other places. So that would be my biggest hurdle, or that has been the biggest hurdle: payment terms and conditions.
Okay. Coming in, getting that government help and knowing, diplomats, ambassadors, have you been able to meet, presidents and do those connections? Do you find those to help you business wise or even personally and, doing day-to-day life?
Well, first and foremost, yes, I have met prime ministers, presidents, and ambassadors, diplomats at all levels in this international business. And, to be frank, Okay, sorry about that. You
Oh.
know, I'm doing this on my phone. So
It's all good. It's
um,
all good.
I think I can turn on, turn off the ringer, or
You
should I
can
put it
turn
on?
on the do not disturb, and it may work
Oh, that's right. Do not
sometime.
disturb.
Yeah,
Yep, there you go. Do not disturb, which I very rarely use. Okay. How's about that?
that's good.
So let me get back to answering that question. Having the connections to politicians in the respective market will help you, because oftentimes those politicians are the gatekeepers to any industry that you plan on entering in. I remember one time I was in a country and I was candidly told, hey, if you want to get into the cell phone industry here or offer cell phone service, you need to deal with this particular person in the government. They control the ins and the outs, and that can be helpful or hurtful depending on the situation. But on a day-to-day basis, having the relationships with the politicians and government officials definitely is helpful, because there's gonna be a time where you need to call on them for some type of verifications, for some type of support. So it makes sense to have a relationship. Is it going to be super beneficial to you from a business standpoint? Usually not, in my experience. It's going to be best to deal directly on a business to business basis. Just to reference back to the alcohol, the best organization to deal with are the distributors or the importers of alcohol in the respective market, and vice versa. The best way to import alcohol, say if you want an American, you wanted to import the Kenyan beer, you're going to need to have the proper credentials in order to do that, which has been done, because Kenyan beer is available in the American market and vice versa. There are American beers that are available here. And it just so happens an American came to the Kenyan market and set up their own distillery, which is doing well.
Okay, please share a name. We like to shout, positive things out.
Yeah, so I'm a regular consumer of the beer. It's called 254 Brewing. They're a microbrewery here in Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay. And I know you are connected, and you've been out there long enough. I'm sad that my dear friend Olive, one of the Lions from the Lions Den, when that show going, we weren't able to meet. But I know we also,
I lost you after you said I'm sad or I'm sad.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sad that I did not when we had our event in Kenya a few years ago, that my dear friend Olive Gusheta, one of the Lions from the Lions Den, when that was going on in Kenya, wasn't able to connect, because I think you've been in Kenya when we did do that event. But I also know Wilmot, our dear friend Wilmot, and you probably hang out the club with him and you're connected with Wilmot. Have you been able to connect with a lot of Americans, or bring over Americans from Connecticut and say, look, this could be a nice retirement plan for you and you can stay busy?
Yes, for sure. As you know, this podcast and content arena is one of the best ways in order to share information just across the board. And even to this day, as of my last podcast, several people have sat down with me for consultations regarding coming to Kenya, exploring the market. As you know, Kia from Traverse Culture, that company also has set the example. And there's the American presence in Kenya has expanded significantly over the last 5 years, which has led many people that have been here for significant amount of time to start sharing their knowledge um, on many different levels. So it's now at the point now where we share referrals and share information amongst each other based on our expertise. Like I've had many folks say, hey, if you want to get into the import export arena, talk to Kevin, and vice versa. If you want to do this, talk to this person. So yes, there has been a growth and a network built here, and many people just on my sharing information alone have either visited and or relocated to Kenya.
Now, people will hear this, and I will have the descriptions of the videos that he's done, because I don't want to repeat what O'Shea or Kia or Web Nation said. I want you guys to go over and check it out, because Kevin is really like an easy interview. So detailed. He should have his own podcast. I hope it's coming. And on YouTube, just, even day-to-day life. It doesn't have to be like anybody else's. But, your grandfather laid down roots that make me think that you guys might even be close to being blue bloods in this next generation, because he put down roots. You've built on top of it. Your family has had laundry mats. And, y'all were doing something kind of similar to mine on the West Coast, where my grandmother put down roots. She died with multiple properties in multiple states. So you get to see that. How easy has it been to bring up, other family members or friends and saying, you know what, Africa might be able to help you live a little bit longer, save some lives? Has anybody come and, laid their matako on your couch saying, I just need a break because I'm stressed out in America?
Well, it's funny you say that. Now, I've had friends come, but no family, not yet. And that's one of the biggest quandaries that exist, period. I won't even say for me or for my life. The lack of conviction from my family in regards to saying, okay, let me check this out based on my dear friend or dear relative being on this continent for X amount of years. I still carry that torch, and I carry it regularly. As you know, I did in the last Web Nation Africa podcast, but sadly, that hasn't come to fruition yet on the family standpoint. I did just have a friend who has visited here third time, actually 2 times, already established real estate investment here, and will soon be a citizen of Nairobi, Kenya, for his retirement plan, him and his wife's retirement plan. They're coming.
Now, what is it about, especially us? Because I know people who will drive from the Bay Area to Las Vegas just to go to a restaurant, or they'll go from Westport, Connecticut, someplace I know kind of well as my younger days, all the way to Louis Lunchbox just to get a okay hamburger. What is it about us where they won't get on a plane, first class it? It's not, if you get it early enough, it won't cost you that much. You get to lean back all the way like Fat Joe and see what it is to have a house help, so you could live like you were in Silver Spoons back in the day. If y'all remember, if y'all are, under 40, you might not remember, but what do you think that is? What are the excuses people have told you? Because you've been to 9 African countries last time I checked, and nobody's followed you.
Well, I mean, I'm going to give my educated opinion, having been on this journey for a total of 14 years. When I first started coming here, I'm sure you've heard it too. It's too long of a plane ride. And the counter is, as you know, especially, you having been on multiple sides of the East Coast, West Coast, and I'm sure every place in between. I'm from Connecticut. And, within the drop of a dime, somebody in the Northeast will drive 12, 14, 15, 20 hours to the South, no problem, and do it a couple of times a year to go visit family. And I'm saying to them, 12, 14, 20 hours in the car, that's about the same plane ride, and you're not driving and you're getting treated well. So that can't be the reason, because it's easier to fly than it is to drive. That was the first set of excuses. Then, I started to hear what ultimately to me is the reason why people don't come here. They still believe the negative propaganda. And then on the flip side of that, they don't want to believe the truth about where they've made their life, which is in the United States. Hearing the truth is that the way of life isn't necessarily the best that there is in the world, and nobody else can compete. The fact of the matter is, like you said, being able to have an experience in another country that is more affordable, where your lifestyle is better, to me, it's like they consider that an insult to what they were told and what they've been experiencing in the United States. And like you said, just to have help. The average, as you know this, the average middle class person in the majority of African countries I've been to, they all have what are called house managers, house help, nanny, maid, cook, gardener, whatever you want to call it. And all that's affordable and all that's reasonable. It's almost like, Kellen, we're guilty or we feel bad. Like the only people that deserve that type of lifestyle are people not like me. Like I'm supposed to toil and struggle, even just with day-to-day activities until I'm dead, until I'm 80s or 90s. And I've had these conversations with people, and I'm like, what? There's no honor in you shoveling snow in your 60s, 70s, or even 50s, or mowing the lawn, or doing your own, household work when it comes to repairs and stuff like that. And the reason you have to do that in the States because it's unaffordable, but in the rest of the world, it's affordable. So why wouldn't you want that lifestyle? It baffles me, to be honest, Kellen.
And when you see somebody winning, you usually would want to follow that. You want to follow the whys. Because when people say, oh, well, nobody ever told me. This is why I do this show, because people are telling you now. And are you listening to this? Are you listening to some social media, influencer crash out about things that won't change your life, about some celebrity that wouldn't even urinate on you?
Exactly.
So I don't get it. But for those who are listening, I know most of you are listening, Podbean, Apple, go over to the YouTube too and go give it a look. So when you are in Nairobi, when you are in the Westlands or downtown Nairobi, late at night like I am sometimes, and they tell me I'm not supposed to be, but I'm with my people, so I'm good. And that's one thing I love about Kenya. Kenya has the best customer service in the world. Ethiopia, you follow them. Rwanda, you're not too far behind. In Japan and Thailand, or no, Philippines, excuse me. You guys are awesome too. Thailand, I haven't been to you. No disrespect. But I want to know, with all the good that you're doing for the business, hiring people, what do you consider a community give back that you're doing or that you would like to do in the future? And if we can help you do that, please let the audience know.
Oh, well, that's easy. And, once again, let's add on to this point. Even the impact you can make here, especially as a Black American immigrant expat. I had somebody on the last podcast I did in the comments section put, you're not stop saying expat, you're an immigrant. Okay, I'm an immigrant, I'm an expat, I'm all the above. The impact that one of our expats has here, in actually several of them, has been supporting education and supporting education of the youth. This individual has adopted a school and helped that school go from point A to point B and continues to do that on a daily basis. We've donated money to the school. We've donated our time. I've done several lectures at the school, that school, and several other schools. We've actually donated clothing to the schools in order to support Kenya's youth and Kenya's kids, where in Kenya, education is still very much highly regarded. Hard work is highly regarded in school, in education. And that's something we've been proud to be able to support and will continue to support. Because when you're amongst young children from as small as 4 or 5 years old, all the way up to high school, that are proud of their efforts to learn and achieve versus, sometimes in the United States, it's cool to be dumb, which always perplexed me. Being able to support kids that see intelligence and hard work in school as a source of pride and honor is much more fulfilling to support them than in places where that's not the case, if you get my drift.
I do. And I love to hear that. A lot of guys go to the Kenya, to the Ethiopia, and the first thing they say are, these women are so nice. They actually talk and they smile. And I say, but don't get it twisted. It's still a woman, and you're going to get some talk back if you stay around long enough. How have you had to deal with that? I don't know if you came in single or if you came in married, with children or have children in the States, but how has that journey been for you?
Well, I mean, culturally here, the what impressed me most about interaction with people, is, of course, not of course, I came in as a single man, here to the continent. Was to that point, the level of respect. People are treated with respect here across the board, male and female. If you say hi to a woman, it's not looked at as some type of advancement. It's not looked at as some type of encroachment. They say hi back. The same with men as well. So what I noticed is that the level of respect here is instant. Now, of course, just like anything else, you can lose respect. And to me, that was what was so refreshing about traveling abroad and specifically traveling here on the continent. Um, every woman I talked to didn't treat me as someone who was trying to approach them or trying to get something out of them. They treated me with respect, and that respect was reciprocated. Versus, oftentimes in the United States, whether married or single, just interaction with the opposite sex can be challenging. And as you know, Kellen, it's to the point now where it's impacted, particular industries. The club industry is dying in America. That's because people don't want to go out anymore, and people don't want to have negative interactions in a place where they're supposed to have positive interactions and entertainment going on. That is the total opposite here. Um, Kenyans love to hang out. Kenyans love to interact with each other. I just went to an event a few weeks ago where they had actually there was a dispute between the DJs and the people that provided the sound equipment. So there was no music at a music event, a Caribbean event for 2 hours. Ask me how many people left the event because of no music.
Nah.
Barely any. Barely any. They stayed there, communicated with each other, ate food and drank the whole time till the music came back on. And then the crowd was even bigger than it was before, and people partied into the night. Like, a situation like that in America would probably be one of a very negative experience, versus here it was a positive experience. Just to give you an example of the interaction that goes on between human beings in Kenya.
I love that. And also, food out there is going to take a little bit longer depending on where you go. And here now, as you know, everyone's in the phone. And I'm not saying it's just America. You can go to Asia, people are really in their phone. Sometimes it's their girlfriend. But the communication and talking and actually, being able to just get to know somebody, where even at our old school parties where people would do the Smurf or the Roger Rabbit or the Running Man. Now I'm old and married, so I ain't been to a club unless I'm paid to be there for a client. And I've seen people just on their phone, just, taking pictures. And it's like, is this all that life is? I don't belong here. So I love when I'm in Africa. I feel at home. I don't feel like a weirdo. How long did it take for you to get comfortable, and have you learned the language? When I say matako, do you know what I'm talking about? Because you can eat one, but some of I'm sorry. I'm sorry if but you can eat one, but it just depends if you know what version of that, and are we speaking English or Swahili? But yeah. Give us the game on how long it
Well,
took you to.
listen, and I think this interview was destined to happen on this day. I was just taking a cab ride home. Oh, by the way, they have uh, transportation apps just like any other part of the world. So I used the app to take a taxi ride home, and the taxi driver struck up a conversation with me and said, "Hey, what was it about Kenya that made you want to stay?" And I told him the first time I came here, I was advised to go hang out, and I was actually traveling alone. I was like, "Well, where should I go hang out?" They say, "Hey, go on this place." I went to this club, and it was like I was stepping back in time. They were playing 80s and 90s hip hop and R&B. Now, mind you, this was only 2012, and I noticed a lot of young people in the club, and they were singing every song word for word, whether it be Total, SWV, Michael Jackson, hip hop. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. If I can be in a place where the music of my childhood is still appreciated to this day and continues to be appreciated to this day, then I'm good. Because the welcome reception here was bar none one of the best experiences I've had. And you know, to be candid, I had my final choice down between South Africa and Kenya won out. Kenya won out, and primarily because I felt there was more opportunity here. But the same treatment existed for me in South Africa. South Africa, they love house music. They call it Amapiano. Once again, that was a flashback for me to my younger days. So the cultural experience here has been one of the best and continues to be one of the best. And we've had an opportunity to make food a part of that foundation of one of the businesses that we have entered into since we've been here on the continent. We've been fortunate enough to merge American barbecue style, and we know what that means, with Kenyan barbecue style, and are building a successful business based on that merger of cultures, that merger of hospitality that exists within the Black American community and the Kenyan community. As you know, you officially part of our community in America when you're invited to the cookout. And we've taken that to the next level here, Kellen.
I love it. I love it. Let the people know, was it the safety that you have in Kenya versus the safety in South Africa? Was it the currency? What was it that made you say Kenya wins?
Well, it wasn't a safety issue. I've never felt unsafe in any of the countries. Well, let me clarify that. I've never felt unsafe, uncomfortably unsafe. Now, of course, you can be anywhere in the world, even in my own neighborhood where I grew up in Connecticut, and feel unsafe. And I think that's an underrated skill that we have as Black Americans. We know often intuitively where not to go and where not to be at a certain time of day or night or whatever the case may be. So it was really more about opportunity. Kenya won out because I felt there was more opportunity here. Across the board, Kenya is less developed than South Africa from an infrastructure standpoint. Kenya's has more opportunity for individuals or organizations to get involved in various assets or various aspects of the country's business, whether it be mining, so forth and so on. Versus South Africa, there's more mostly more competitions. Since it's more developed, there's higher cost of entry into a specific market. That's what separated the two. Definitely wasn't a matter of safety. I felt just as safe here in Kenya as I have in South Africa, and as I have in the United States. And it's funny you mentioned the safety issue because in my last podcast, I remarked about the fact that the traffic cops don't carry guns, and one of the commentators on the podcast, gave me the reason why the traffic cops don't carry guns here in Kenya. And I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, there's a legal precedent. But either way, the fact that they don't have them made me feel more safe here. And then you flip that all over to the South Africa standpoint. Now the traffic cops do carry guns in South Africa. But guess what? From my standpoint, I still felt it safe because most of the traffic cops were Black. And we all know that trauma, even of witnessing, let alone experiencing how cops treat Black Americans when it comes to even something as innocent as a traffic stop, has left an impact. So being able to experience both situations, gun carrying cop, no gun carrying cop, and being treated pleasantly and politely is one of the reasons why I feel more home here than I do in the place where I was born.
And what you'll find all through Africa, that is, somewhat true. I've sat with friends of my wife who's from Africa, and I said, "Why does the police keep following us?" And I forgot. Oh, her friend is a political figure. They have to. But even this guy, his gun was not visible. They put it in a place where nobody would know, and just because just you don't need all that. But you are in a place where South Africa has more Mzungus, or as they like to say in South Africa, Malungus. They change it up. You have more of us, and there's a piece to that for sure. Have you been able to tap into the things that you can get first? Because whether it's the Maasai jewelry, which that's what I got on right here with my name on it, or the shells, or even the music you'll find. I remember when Channel O was a thing in Africa. This is 20 years ago, but like songs like Akon and NDRE, that song did not come out in America yet. I was in the business. It did not come out. It came out in Africa, in Europe first, probably because they didn't think it would do too well in America at the time. But even getting music,
Yes.
yeah. So even getting music like
No.
Labar, yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And you bring up another interesting part of my journey. I was here when a burgeoning artist came to Kenya. His name is Maseho, or Masego, they call him. And he's actually had a significant rise in the States. But I met him, or I saw him here first in Kenya, and I was invited to the concert. People was like, "Yeah, this is an American called Maseo. He's from the States," and I had never heard him before. So, and he had a huge following here in East Africa and in Southern Africa. And I saw him perform, and I'm like, man, this guy's very talented. But he didn't fit, unfortunately, the traditional American music model. And we won't get into that, but lo and behold, 4 and 5 years later, I see him blowing up in the United States. And I was able to say, yeah, he established his market outside of the United States, and then was able to bring his skill set and his music into the United States. And to your point, I think that's really the overall message for Americans, or Black Americans in particular, in the industries, in business, and in all aspects of their life. You can do more outside of the United States, because the barriers that exist for you to excel are either non-existent or much less than what you experience in the United States. Unless I speak, nobody knows who I am. And better yet, nobody cares that who I am based on the color of my skin. And that's what I like about being here. As long as I don't speak, I can really be anonymous and go in anywhere on the continent, for the most part. Actually, not for the most part. Anywhere in many of the countries I've been to, and be just treated like a human. And even when I speak, the treatment is still good. I just like being anonymous sometimes, walking into a very expensive restaurant, very expensive store, and not having to worry about being potentially mistreated.
Shout out to Kia, who put me on Maseho when we were in Kenya, and I was like, "Who?" It's just funny how that is, and so many artists have that, that story. What is the for you? Is it opening up the doors? Is it having the biggest business? Is it just having the peace to do whatever the heck you want to do? What's the biggest factor now for you? Because something tells me if you wanted to, you could do nothing if you wanted to. You've set yourself up. You got enough business going. You've had enough business going. You might have did what my hat says in VTSAX and chill. So your mutual funds make money. What's the ultimate goal for you right now?
Well, the ultimate goal, I mean, let's start off with the epiphany I had, I think much later in life than I should have had it, but I had it nonetheless, was that I've always liked to do things the hard way. And trailblazing my Pan-African journey.
You've tried it your way, but you're still in debt. Or maybe you're doing okay but want to invest smarter, grow faster. MillionaireX.ai gives you real step-by-step strategies to ditch debt or stack wealth. Stop dreaming and start planning. Visit MillionaireX.ai today. I want you to be the next millionaire next door.
Ultimately, I had an epiphany not too long ago that I'd like to do things the hard way. I mean, even starting from my childhood, I decided that I wanted to be a football player. I'm not a big person, still not a big person. I'm 5'9" with heels on probably. Um, at the time, I definitely was uh, not anywhere close to being slightly over 100 pounds. Put it that way, because I started that journey at 12 or 13. But I was able to maximize that all the way up to playing on a football scholarship from 18 all the way till I graduated the university. Then my next journey was just as hard. Started a family at a very young age. So once I had that epiphany, I knew I was destined to be where I am here on the continent, blazing a trail for others to follow. And not just for other to follow. I'm not that arrogant to not know, or not that intellectually curious to not know. I'm following the footsteps of so many Americans, Black Americans that have done the same thing, whether it be um, W.E.D. Du Bois and his sojourn in Ghana and his stay there, um, whether it be, I'm trying to pull up some other, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen, following footsteps of even people that are alive to this day in making sure that our connection to the continent has been strengthened. And I think that's part of my journey and part of my legacy. As I stated before, I have a 2-year old, soon to be 3-year old grandson. He will step foot on the African continent decades before I do, just like my children will. They will step on the continent, footsteps on the continent of Africa, def, decades before I do. And that's going to be one of my biggest legacies.
I love that. And I can't wait for the book to come out. I can't wait for the YouTube and the podcast, because I get to learn as much as we've been able to do in different African countries. I still get to learn because I'm still in Babylon. I get to go back and forth as much as I want, as business allows, and some personal stuff as well. But can you tell people, when coming there, the number one mistake you see people doing? Because I'm a big collector of passports and residencies. And I tell people, like the wandering investor who I've interviewed, they're like, I buy condos in Nairobi because the penthouse will always keep its value. Do you think people should come to a country? How long should it take for them to buy? Should they buy in Kenya? Because if you spend $100,000, they may be able to get a permanent residency and work their way on to citizenship. But give us the game on your thoughts for Kenya, how you have seen it. Or is it better to rent based on, some things that you know?
Well, I think you and I know this. Our mutual content creator and international traveler, Kia of Traverse Culture. I like her approach to it, which is do some exploratory visits and do them at lengths that are as long as possible to understand the good and the bad of the place where you want to consider to live. So, in my opinion, Americans, Black Americans in particular, need to have a plan B. Plan A is not looking that great. And when I say plan A, let me speak to my generation in particular. I'm 56. So your plan A is retirement in some form or fashion now, 10 years from now, whatever the case may be. Well, retirement in America right now is just looking not even possible unless you're a multi millionaire. And in order to have a plan B needs to have a place where your cost of living is less. And as you know, Kellen, you know, being from California and me being from the Northeast, the old school plan B or the plan A when it comes to retirement was move to a lower cost state. I'm gonna go back south or all, West Coast. I'm gonna move to Arizona or this, and that. even that's not affordable now. So your plan B should, in my opinion, be outside of the country. And I say this all the time. I don't tell people, like, obviously my first choice is here on the continent of Africa or an African country, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. I know there's a lot of self-hatred out there, and you may consider Thailand, Philippines, Mexico, Canada, wherever the place may be for your plan B. But I encourage you to have a plan B.
And C and D, just because you need to go where you're treated best, in the words of the nomad
Okay.
capitalist father. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and a nomad capitalist is somebody I've referenced all the time, and even he has been talking of late about the continent of Africa in several countries, because his feeds, you follow him as well. His feeds pop up all the time.
He's been a guest. He's been a guest.
Okay, good, yeah. So yeah, like you said, a plan A, B, C, and D.
Okay. I'm the only person that has done an interview with him while this is via Zoom. He did it from his bed. Usually Andrew is all suited up and everything.
Yes,
He was in his bed because at the time he didn't consider himself a YouTuber. But, I really enjoy him and the Wandering Investor. And again, I study these things. When people say, hey, why is the retainer so high? Because we really do this, and you got to pay for, whatever the education is that we have and the connections that we have. This isn't a $500 ticket. Life is all good. When you talked about retirement, though, do you ever plan to, retire? I'm in the FIRE movement, but you can also do the FIND movement where you're just looking for your next thing to do, but you don't have to work. Do you ever plan to just stop and enjoy your, what you've accumulated?
Yes, for sure. I do plan to stop and enjoy, and when that is, I'm not quite sure yet. The fire still burns in the belly on a daily basis when it comes to activity, and that's.
Hello, everyone. Join us on an exciting journey with Explore the World Cameroon. London and Sydney go take you explore Cameroon, the heart of Africa. Experience the vibrant culture, nature, and traditions from Yaoundé market to rainforest adventures. Every page na new discovery. Join the Cameroonian food, music, and wildlife with our explorers. This book na true celebration of Cameroon spirit. Get your copy now. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and through your library and bookstores via Ingram's Park. Don't miss this adventure.
But when you're saying people to leave America, are you, because you being 56, you have some friends and family who have been retirement age. What we've seen about retirement, Social Security isn't enough. For most people, it's under $2,000, and that's surely not enough to live for most people. Do you think it's kind of a life or death? And how many years, do you think that it could add on to people's money that haven't, set themselves up financially in the past? If I get away with that question, I get away with it. Internet, please.
Look, I'd say minimum 10 years, and more than likely 20 years, your money will be expended by relocating outside of the United States. I just had a friend the other day who his former colleague called him up, was like, hey, I saved up. I think she said it was either $300,000 or $500,000. And he said to me, she asked me, well, what should I do? And I said, you should tell her to leave. That's really her only option, because with 300 to 500 grand, I mean, depending on where you live, you might get 10 years out of that, maybe. And that's assuming no catastrophic health issues. That's assuming a very modest life. And, we are living, well into our 70s, 80s, and even 90s. So after 10 years, when your money runs out, what happens? And I'd rather not be in that position. I'd rather be able to come visit in America when I need to, and then have my money outlive me in another part of the world. Because the reality is, and I've said this to people anyway, it's like, well, I don't, this is a sad part of the American society. Well, I don't want to leave my friends and family. I'm like, okay, how many times a year do you see them? We got people live in the same cities and don't see each other but 2-3 times a year, and they related. So miss me with that BS excuse.
I appreciate it. You guys, we did this with no power, but we had a powerful interview. If you heard me say it before, I'm going to say it again. I thank you. Thank you for coming to the end. Make sure you comment, make sure you like, and make sure you share this game with somebody. It will change their life. Y'all be blessed.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kellen Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.